Scottie Barnes was disrespected in a recent interview as an NBA champion came out and essentially said that Scottie Barnes would be better off being more of a glue guy role player rather than the star he's being set up to become with the Toronto Raptors. So we'll discuss that, including a report that came out that revealed the truth about Evan Mobley's desires on NBA draft night, where he was selected to pick ahead of where the Toronto Raptors were selecting on that night. And also there's a heated debate going on amongst Raptors fans right now about Vince Carter's jersey retirement after the Nets just announced that his jersey will be going up in the rafters. So lots of stuff to dive into in this video, but before we do, folks, you guys have been crushing it, hitting that like button, and it's really helping out the vid. So if you guys are enjoying the videos, make sure you guys like this vid. It's easy to do, press the button, but I appreciate it. But let's dive into the first topic of discussion. First thing we're taking a look at is this is disrespectful to Scottie Barnes, as there was a little interview, came out that regarding Aaron Gordon, who is on this Denver Nuggets team, a little zombie Nuggets team that looked like they were dead in the water with the Minnesota Timberwolves coming out and absolutely squashing the first two games of that series. And then they've just made a little bit of a resurgence and should be deserved of praise. And Aaron Gordon's a guy who's won an NBA championship last year, has really revived his career with the Denver Nuggets. And basically, he was asked in a recent interview about, for a mental exercise, who's the next Aaron Gordon, a guy miscast as a role as an all-star, but might excel as the ultimate glue guy. And Aaron Gordon was actually asked about that in an interview, and his answer was Scottie Barnes. Now, I'm sure this wasn't Aaron Gordon trying to take a shot at Scottie Barnes, wasn't trying to minimize the type of player that he is. But in a vacuum, out there in the media, especially with how these things get run with, this is disrespectful to Scottie Barnes' game, Scottie Barnes' potential, and frankly, the guy Scottie Barnes has already become over the first 3 seasons of his career. Scottie Barnes is obviously a guy that can be a utility piece. He can be a Swiss Army knife. He plays defense. He's long. He's athletic. He's improved his jump shot. He does everything out there on the basketball court. Nothing crazy remarkable outside of probably his passing vision and obviously athleticism, but he's improving his game completely just in a well-rounded aspect to where I think he's already at that star level and can definitely take that jump, take that leap as a dude that's still extremely young, only in his 3rd year in the NBA. But Aaron Gordon was obviously a guy coming out of high school, touted as a hyped up prospect, mostly because of the hoop mixtapes, the Ball is Life tapes of Aaron Gordon dunking on people. If you guys remember those back in the day, there was a lot of hype for Aaron Gordon coming to the NBA, but from day one, from the jump, he didn't nearly play, even where Aaron Gordon is at right now. He is not playing, having the impact on his team the same way Scottie Barnes has proven over the start of his year, heck, even over the start of his career, and heck, even during the season where there's a little bit of a down point, during Scottie Barnes' 2nd season. I mean, we can look at the stats. We can bring up the numbers. Scottie in his rookie season won Rookie of the Year in the NBA, edging out a pretty good draft class with Evan Mobley, with Cade Cunningham, those dudes in that class. Again, only 20 years old, 21, kind of stagnated a bit of a weird season, but last year became an all-star in the NBA, averaged 20 points per game, averaged 6 assists, averaged 5 rebounds, or 8 rebounds, I can't read it here at this point, 1.3 steals. Scottie Barnes was an all-star last season. So what did Aaron Gordon do over the first 3 years of his career? If we're doing comparables, if this is the direction, the route that Scottie Barnes should take on his path to maximize his potential and stuff. Well, let's take a look at what Aaron Gordon's stats were over the first 3 seasons of his career. 5 points per game, 4 rebounds. And this is not for a lack of minutes. Obviously, Scottie Barnes got some more minutes, but Aaron Gordon still had the opportunities there with the Orlando Magic, and if he could produce, could play at a high level, definitely would have been given that run. But 5 points per game, 9 points per game, and 13 points per game. Never even sniffed, never even came close to an all-star. I know defensively he was solid, but Aaron Gordon was just a tier below, a couple tiers below the player that Scottie Barnes was. Obviously started to get pushed as more of a league guy for the Orlando Magic as his career went along, and that was the hopes, that was the dreams for Magic fans, especially with his athleticism, his ability to dunk, all that cool stuff. But frankly, from the jump, really at any point in Aaron Gordon's career, he never had the talent, he never had the potential of a Scottie Barnes. And to claim that Scottie Barnes is a guy that should be more of a, utility piece, a glue guy on a roster, sure, we've seen guys that, they're impactful to winning, and Scottie Barnes does have the skill sets. He could easily play the role of an Aaron Gordon, but he has so much more potential that it's just disrespectful take, regarding Scottie Barnes, if that's the direction you want to go. I mean, you could say Draymond Green, but he became a multi-time All-Star, NBA champion, and all that type of stuff. No one would consider him, a guy miscast as a star or as a role player. He was a star for the Golden State Warriors, and if that's sort of, if you're minimizing Scottie Barnes to Aaron Gordon, that's kind of silly. I know Draymond Green's a very polarizing player too. To compare Scottie Barnes, very different guys, but in the similar sort of vein, and I think that's kind of the floor in terms of Scottie Barnes' development, is that Draymond Green-esque player. But let me know what you guys think about all that. Obviously, Green's a better defender, certainly, and then Scottie Barnes, better offensive player. But let's dive into the next topic discussion, staying on this sort of 2021 draft class, I believe it was, but obviously, that year, the Toronto Raptors drafted Scottie Barnes with the number 4 overall pick. And the guy that was selected before him, and the guy that apparently the Toronto Raptors really wanted to sort of have into this roster, have into this group with our lack of center at that time, and just the potential. That was a really top 3 heavy class. Outside of the top 3, there's question marks about who's going to get drafted. In fact, it was actually supposed to be a top 4 loaded class, with Jalen Suggs being the number 4 overall selection, and then it being a bit of a risky scenario in terms of who you're going to select. Masai Ujiri went off the board, selected Scottie Barnes, but it was widely reported, Masai would probably admit, the guy that they wanted in that NBA draft was Evan Mobley. And apparently, Evan Mobley wanted the Toronto Raptors as well, at least didn't want the Cleveland Cavaliers. As interestingly, Mobley's, and this coming from Shams, Mobley's representation, Wasserman cautioned the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2021 not to select Mobley, league sources have said. It's common draft strategy amongst agents in an effort to get players to a certain team. In this instance, Oklahoma City Thunder made multiple offers to the Cavs for the number 3 overall pick in that year, sources said, but the Cavs selected Mobley anyway, and the relationship has remained healthy and positive. But that night, obviously, OKC tried to trade. There's a ton of reports back at that time. The Toronto Raptors tried to trade up at that point as well, but that's just added in there so the Cavs had the opportunity to sort of get off of Mobley, because there wasn't a world where you're letting that value pass by. You sort of make the deal and then go after someone else. But basically, if he didn't want the Cavs to select him, who were the number 3 overall pick, number 4 was the Toronto Raptors. And clearly, whatever you want to say about the city of Cleveland and stuff, we can dive into that. The Toronto Raptors had the perfect sort of opportunity, the way the roster was constructed at that time, to bring in an Evan Mobley. I mean, during that year, we had our lineup, Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., he was showing a ton of potential there at that time. Fred VanVleet became an all-star the season after, so Fred VanVleet was really at the peak of his powers there at that point, had OG Anunoby and had Pascal Siakam, and we didn't have a 5. We're running Aaron Baines at the 5, during that Tampa Tank season. We had some promising guys off the bench. This Raptors team looked like a came off a championship just a couple seasons prior, a very competitive team the previous year with the bubble playoffs going on, and we're in Tampa. It seemed like a fluke season for the Toronto Raptors to be going into the to be going into the lottery, to be going into one of those top picks, and essentially Evan Mobley, that would have been a desirable destination for him, because he would have immediately came in, didn't have to compete with guys like Jarrett Allen. I think Kevin Love was on the Cleveland Cavaliers at the time as well. I think Lauri Markkanen might have been there also on that Cavs team. So, he was fighting for a lot of minutes. A guy that's probably naturally more of a center, a 5 blocking shots, or at least a 4 big man that could play that big man spot. I mean, Evan Mobley would have been the perfect fit positional wise, but I'm very happy the way things played out. We got Scottie Barnes, we got the best player in the draft, but makes sense why Evan Mobley wanted to come to the Toronto Raptors, and it's interesting to see things completely blow up in Cleveland's face now after they weren't very competitive against the Boston Celtics in the second round of this year's playoffs. But interesting sort of storyline there. And the final thing, which I know has become a big debate amongst Toronto Raptors fans, is Vince Carter, because obviously one of the most influential players in Toronto Raptors history, a guy that I will not argue with anyone and describe his impact on keeping this team in Toronto, how much he made the sport of basketball way more popular across the country of Canada. I mean, Vince Carter deserves his respect, deserves his praise, and, just historical credibility from Raptors fans in terms of what he did there. Personally, anyone who's watched this channel over the past 7 years knows I'm not a Vince Carter fan. I grew up in the age of this guy ruining my childhood, playing for the Nets, leaving this team, giving up on the Toronto Raptors. That was my first introduction to NBA basketball. Vince Carter giving up on this team, the star player that did all the dunks, leaving Toronto and going to the Nets, knocking us out in the playoffs, all of those types of things. So I I was grown with this sort of distaste for Vince Carter in my mouth. Now, I've been able to get past that. I've been able to move on from the, childhood. Probably hate, NBA hatred. Never hate the guy personally, but you obviously root against teams and stuff like that. Well, while I do respect in everything he did for the city, I didn't really get to witness all the highs of Vince Carter with the Toronto Raptors. So I'm extremely biased. I'm young. I understand people that want his jersey retired, but I will never get past the fact what he did to me as a child. So the fact that he's getting his jersey retired with the Nets, it's great. Congratulate him and stuff. But Josh Lundberg essentially came out that he's betting that Vince Carter will get his jersey retired by the Raptors as well. Frankly, I don't think that should be the case. I don't think Vince Carter deserves his jersey to be retired after the way he left Toronto. Disrespecting a franchise, leaving, no matter how much you mend fences, no matter what you do along those lines, you shouldn't have your jersey retired, if you have an exit such as that. Was it just on Vince Carter? No. It was poor management, all that stuff. The GM at the time not getting his jersey retired or getting a statue or anything like that as well. But frankly, he didn't handle it well, so I don't want Vince Carter's jersey to be retired, especially before a guy like Kyle Lowry, even before a guy like DeMar DeRozan. If 15 is getting retired in the Toronto Raptors, it's going to be Amir Johnson. That's been my take. I'm standing by it. But not to disrespect Vince Carter, but I don't want to see his jersey retired by the Raptors. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comment section down below. You guys best thing is first, subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. I'm signing out. Cheers.